This is the primal scream of a dying regime. Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're just not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
It's Thursday, 23 July, Year of our Lord 2026. I want to honored to have on our guest, Amy Kremer from Humans First, the chairman. Amy, and I remember this morning we talked about Obamacare. We talked about Obamacare in regards to Rahm Emanuel went to Obama before, and you remember these huge fights and these big protests. Yep. You were one of the leaders of the Tea Party meeting. We would have, a lot of the audience does, but some of the younger element doesn't remember, back in 2009 and 2010, these massive, I mean, turning out 1 million people in Washington, D.C. of the Tea Party movement at the beginning, really, and the folks that came to fight Obamacare, Michelle Bachmann. It was amazing time. Jenny Beth Martin, Amy Kremer, others. The energy was incredible. But what Obama said to Emanuel, he says, I don't care. He says, you're missing the point, because Rahm Emanuel, the practical guy, goes in and says, hey, look, let me be blunt. If we go down this path, we're going to lose the House and the Senate. He says, look outside. They're bringing 500,000, 1 million people to these rallies. That just doesn't happen in America. And Obama said, I don't care. And when he lost the Tea Party, I didn't get a chance to mention this morning, in 2010, it was off a smaller base. I think the Republicans only had around 150 seats, and the realignment redistricting happened. But I believe we won 62 seats in that midterm election. The Tea Party movement won 62 seats with people like the Ted Cruz's of the world, the Marco Rubio's of the world. Christie, it was people that heretofore hadn't really been in elective politics, driven by basically the Tea Party movement, Amy Kremer, and a handful of others. I was there. I was actually kind of the filmmaker. Andrew Breitbart, I was his partner at the time. I just got involved at Breitbart News. We're really an independent documentary filmmaker, and I made documentaries just to go out and to drive this movement, but it was absolutely amazing. But the thing that impressed me the most is after Obama gets blown out every time in these midterm elections, he come right back from the White House the next day and says, I got a pen and a phone. I don't care. I'm going to do it with executive orders, because he knew the stakes he was fighting for. As much as you dislike Obama, he got the joke that he was making permanent changes for his political philosophy, and he was willing to take the hits for that and to fight back. Now, and this is why I think it's so amazing that you're involved in this over at Humans First, where you're the chairman. I keep telling people, this has been more behind the scenes that has been out in the public. But there is a fight on Capitol Hill like I've never seen before. If you think the Save America Act and all these, one of the reasons they're dismissing this, they're spending all their time on other things that they know are so important, and this is legislative. I got to ask you, though, some of the details that have come out in the scientific, technology, and business media over the last couple of weeks reinforces what you've been fighting for, what we've been fighting for, the Joe Allens of the world, that, hey, this technology is so dangerous, potentially dangerous. You need to have a rational thing. Talk to me your thoughts about this containment break the other day out of AI that led to a basically an attack by a system they thought they had contained, and they were just working on it. It actually broke out to get what they figured. The machine thought it was being asked for solutions, and went and started attacking. Went online and then started attacking other machines, other AI entities, with a level of sophistication that blew away the people who actually built the first one. Your thoughts, ma'am?
So I think this is probably the most important fight I've ever been in my life. I think this is the issue of our lifetime, Steve. And I think that what happened with this OpenAI internal model breaking out of what they call the sandbox, where it's not connected to the internet, any other computers, that sort of thing, it breaks out, it goes and attacks an American business. And we find out about it a week later. And this is what we've all been warning about. This is exactly what we sent the letter to the president about in May, or a couple of months ago of this year, asking him to execute an executive order requiring that these frontier AI models have mandatory pre-deployment testing and approval before they're released, and that the national security agencies be involved. I think this is a national security crisis. It was only a couple months ago that I was on here with you discussing that that Scott Bessent, our Treasury Secretary, convened all the big executives from the banks behind closed doors, and they withheld Mythos from being released because of the fact that it could take down our financial system. Right now, what happened with OpenAI breaking out and breaking into Hugging Face, that's the name of the company it broke into. I mean, you're talking about an AI model that could potentially attack our grid, could attack the FAA, our transportation system, our emergency 911 systems, the financial system. This is a crisis. This is absolutely a crisis. Congress has their head in the sand and refused to pretty much do anything. I want the president and the White House to act on this and require that mandatory testing before release to the public. After 9/11, and I'm a flight attendant who was flying on 9/11 and actually got stuck outside of the country for a week, and my family didn't know where I was that day, if I was dead or alive. But after 9/11, the federal government acted. They absolutely acted, and they did what needed to be done. With Wuhan and COVID, they didn't act. And look at the results of that. We now have a warning shot, and it is incumbent upon them, Steve, to act. The number one responsibility of the federal government is to protect the American people. And I want to say something. I want to tell everybody that in 2015, Sam Altman, who is the OpenAI founder, said in 2015, and I quote, "I think that it is that AI will probably lead to the end of the world," end quote. Steve, here we are, and who's going to do something about it?
Give me that quote. I want to hit that quote again, because now they're all running from their early day quotes, right? Well, give us,
right.
And Altman was OpenAI where this came out of. Just take your time and walk back through that quote.
I think that AI will probably lead to the end of the world. That was his quote in 2015. Quote, "I think that AI will probably lead to the end of the world," end quote. And here we are 11 years later, and look what's happened.
There's something like happened, breaking out of containment could lead to it. I want to go back to this before we get into the legislative thing, the executive action. You were instrumental, you, Joe Allen, a handful of others were instrumental in making sure that the White House, elements of the White House on this executive order, this framework that they put out, because that is a result of saxing these guys time and time and time again, trying to slide into must-pass piece of legislation like the NDAA or like the big, beautiful bill, aspects that would really have no regulatory apparatus whatsoever, and just leave it to the frontier labs and these CEOs to do whatever they want as far as, and never notify anybody. And you saw what happened the other day with this breakout from containment. Now, given a lot of efforts, and even President Trump saying, "Hey, look, I think we need some guidelines," we've got a rudimentary framework. And that framework begins a process. And this is why I say Scott Bessent's involved, Treasury's involved, the intelligence agencies are finally involved. But it was voluntary instead of being mandatory. It was a heads up like a week before they were going to deploy it instead of a couple of months. Do you believe that, and now they're back trying to get some legislation, but just that framework alone, can that be buttressed? Can that be buttressed just from help from the White House? Because the White House has cleared out some of the guys that were the most adamant about no controls, no control. Tell people about that. There's been essentially at least somewhat of a sea change inside the White House and the people advising President Trump from kind of this libertarian, just let the oligarchs run wild, and because we got to win this race, to something that even President Trump saying, hey, look, we need to have at least a framework of some guidelines on this, but it's still voluntary. It's not mandatory. Do you think what happened the other day now raises this alarm that it's got to be mandatory?
I think it absolutely does. And I want to be clear here. I have supported the president before he ever came down that golden escalator. I am grateful for what he's done, but he needs to go farther. But Steve, honestly, at the end of the day, the president is not the lawmaker here. It is incumbent on Congress to govern, and they refuse to act on this stuff. So right now, all we have is what the president can do. And so I do think it's incumbent on him to demand regulatory, or to demand pre-approval and mandatory testing before release. I think it is incumbent on him. And I will say that, there is a bill, HR 9477, by Representative Nathan Moran out of Texas, that he put forward June 25th, I believe. And this is exactly about the reporting of something like this happening. So if people want to know what they could do, I would say call your representative, ask them to co-sponsor that legislation, HR 9477 by Nathan Moran, and encourage them to get this passed. Because at the end of the day, Steve, look, the president can leave office and hopefully Republicans maintain control of both the House and the Senate and the White House. But we don't know what the next president will do. And so they could get rid of that executive order. We've seen that with President Obama, then President Trump comes in, and Biden, and so on and so forth. The American people cannot live this way with this uncertainty. We need this codified into law, and that is incumbent upon Congress to do that. I will say this, you are absolutely right about the regulations on these things. There are more regulations on a hot dog that you would buy from a street vendor in New York City than there are on these big AI companies. And even though a lot of these people have left the White House, when President Trump signed that executive order on June 2nd, we thought he was going to go farther than he did. And allegedly what happened was David Sachs picked up the phone and called the president, and David Sachs is the one that stopped it. And so they backed off of the mandatory pre-deployment testing. David Sachs tweeted earlier this week, I believe it was on Sunday, that they need, quote unquote, permissionless innovation. Steve, I'm sorry, but that is a bunch of BS. All they care about is the zeros in their bank account. This is on the backs of the American people. It's about our safety and security. And I don't care how many zeros they have in their bank account. I want to live my life and my family and everybody else. I want them to know that we're going to be safe, and we're not going to have some rogue AI system going and causing Skynet. And that is really what we're looking at right now. And it is very serious. And I think the president needs to act on this. And the big tech companies are not going to like it. But you know what? The American people are demanding answers.
Amy, real quickly, right before we go to break, you're going to stick around with us. You brought up something I want to make sure people understand. As bad as this containment issue was, it happened a week. Now, they say they notified the White House right away, but it happened a week before the general population knew about it, even the guys in the tech reporting. Is that true? This thing happened a week. They supposedly notified the White House immediately because it was a national security issue. That was, I guess, put to bed. There was enough there to kind of calm people down, or enough corrective action. But it didn't come out to the American people. And this is what one of the things Moran wants to do is saying, hey, the American people need to know if these are national security issues. You need to notify the American people immediately.
Yes, I think that is what needs to be done. Steve, if you think, from my understanding, the biotech industry and the financial industry, they require regulation and they govern before release. Why are we letting these guys get away with this? The airline industry, if there's an incident on an airliner, we are required to report it. Hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, all of the industry that OSHA regulates. Why are we giving these guys a free pass? Why? Why do this? This is the thing. This technology is the most powerful technology in all of human history, and it can wipe us off this planet. But this is the thing. It was built on American data with American energy, American land, American resources, and many times American taxpayer dollars. Yeah. And the American people have no seat at the table and have no voice in how this affects our lives or how it's going to be used in the future.
Amy, just hang on for 1 second. We're going to get drilled down on this. A lot happening. The data centers, there's massive legislation up on Capitol Hill. And then the whole threat of this, particularly with the oligarchs in charge. Short commercial break. Back in the warm in a moment.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
So, Amy Kremer, chairman of Humans First, one of the founders of the Tea Party movement. You're a grassroots expert. You've been a grassroots expert for 20, 30 years. Is the grassroots in back of this, are you seeing an upswell of people, particularly people in the Trump movement, saying, hey, look, we got to get our hands around this thing. It's quite dangerous. We see national security issues, but we also see issues related to our children. We see issues related to our jobs, to our progeny, all of it. Is it the same intensity as when you were one of the founders of the Tea Party movement?
Yes, Steve, it's really amazing what's going on out there across the country, and the people are paying attention, honestly, more than I realized. We did a national day of protests last Saturday, data center protests across the country. We had 42 states, 142 protests across the country. And what was shocking to me are the signs that at these data center protests that are not about the grid and their rising utility costs or their water or their land, that sort of thing, but about AI and how AI is, impacting our lives in so many ways. And the American people have not had a voice in this or a say in it. And so I think, what's happening across this country is with this technology, it is being shoved down our throats. Big tech has been given a pass. It's being shoved down our throats and impacting our lives in so many ways. Children are dying, taking their own lives because of manipulation by chatbots. It's been used in terroristic activity, whether it's, the shooting at Florida State University last April, the shooting up in British Columbia earlier this year where 8 people died. We just saw the reports 2 weeks ago about Boko Haram using AI chatbots to plan terroristic activity abroad. So it's being used in ways that nobody anticipated. And it's like Washington doesn't want to govern on it. And the people are upset about it. And now, the big tech, big AI is coming in. The data centers are the backbone and the infrastructure of AI. You cannot have AI without these AI hyperscale data centers. And so what they're doing is they're going across the country and they're buying up all this land and building these, or attempting to build all of these hyperscale data centers in these communities. And again, the community has no say. And half the time they find out about it, it's already halfway through the process and they can't stop it. Big tech has blanketed Washington, D.C. with money. They've built a moat around the White House. But now they've taken it down to the state level and to even the local level in these counties and cities. And it's just not right what's happening. The American people should have a say in how this technology is used, how it impacts our lives. And we absolutely should have a say in if a data center is going to be built in our communities. And I didn't even mention the billions, and I said billions with a B, of tax abatements that these companies are getting. And Steve, these are the richest companies in the world. They have more money than God. And yet they're sucking off of the taxpayer teat, whether it's the corporate welfare that they're getting through the tax abatements, whether it's coming in and tapping into our water supply, the electrical grid, buying the land. This is all on the backs of the American people. And all we hear from this big tech sales pitch, that's what it is, because I'm sure that the posse has heard this, but China, but we have to beat China. Well, let me tell you something, Steve, this is the reality. If we have to beat China, then why are we still selling our chips to China? Why have we loosened our export controls to China? Why is a large number of the people working in the labs in Silicon Valley Chinese nationals? And why did we find out last week that OpenAI and Google are selling their frontier models to Chinese subsidiaries that have been blacklisted by the Pentagon? Not to mention all of the money that's coming off the backs of the American taxpayer. What is happening is they are sucking off the teat of the American people, and they're going to China, and it's all about the almighty dollar. And we should not have this hung around our neck. And so people are standing up and they're fighting back.
I want to make sure, because I want to get the grassroots temperature here. as much as I'm a proto-Luddite, this is not about stopping technological progress.
No.
They're painting the grassroots movement as, first off, they're saying, well, you're actually either paid for by and or unconsciously working to the benefit of the Chinese Communist Party, number one. Number two, that you're trying to stop something that's inevitable. And I think people, particularly the hardworking backbone of our populist nationalist grassroots movement, understands there has to be technological progress. This is about unfettered, having the oligarchs determine what they're going to do, where they're going to do it, how they're going to do it. Mm-hmm. And the lie about China is the one I think there's not a bigger anti-CCP platform than ourselves. I'm still the only civilian in the history of this country that's been permanently banned by China and mandated by all kind of economic sanctions against me by the Chinese Communist Party, which I wear as a badge of honor because of my anti-CCP stance. I just want you to go back one more time and put in and just talk about this is a false, it's a false alternative about the CCP. The oligarchs themselves are selling chips. We now know, yesterday was reported that all these NVIDIA chips turned up in breaking the very minimum we had on restrictions, that they end up in there. We have 600,000 or 400,000 Chinese students here at our top engineering schools. They're not over here studying medieval poetry. They're also, and then we got in all the labs, you have Chinese nationals. Just go through the litany that shows the lie. We're anti-CCP. We want it all shut down. Then China wouldn't even be on the playing field. We've created the entire ecosystem. Amy Kremer.
You're right, Steve. And I do want to say for the posse out there, I am not anti-tech. I am not anti-AI. AI is here. It has done good things. I believe there are good things to come from it in the future, but there have to be regulations and safety mechanisms around it too, so it doesn't wipe humanity off the planet. But as far as China goes, and I will say, they have accused me of being, a paid Chinese operative. I'm doing this for the Chinese. Steve, I have never sold out ever in my life. And if I was going to sell out, why wouldn't I have sold out to big tech where I could be in the trenches with my colleagues that I've worked with for years that have been bought off? I'm not ever going to sell out. I am America first through and through, and America can win this innovation war. What they want us to do is they want to forego safety in the name of innovation. And this is the thing. They're not mutually exclusive. We can have both innovation and safety. But their line of attack is this. Their line of attack is that we have been bought off by the Chinese. And the reality is we are still selling the chips to the Chinese. We have loosened our export controls to the Chinese. A large number of Chinese nationals are working in the labs in Silicon Valley. And then we find out last week that OpenAI and Google are selling their frontier AI systems to Chinese subsidiaries that have been blacklisted by the Pentagon. And Steve, I want to add one more thing. They keep saying that China wants this data center opposition movement shut down. Let me tell you something. If China wanted to shut down the data center opposition movement, they could. You know why? Because 30% of the parts in the data centers come from China. 70% of the lithium batteries in these data centers come from China. You know what gives the Chinese leverage is when you're racing to build out as fast as you can and you don't have an American supply chain that originates here in our country. That's what gives the Chinese leverage. So all this stuff about China is a bunch of BS, and I would encourage the posse to go do their own investigating, and they will find out this information.
Yeah. I tell you what, let's play. There's a response today, earlier today, from the White House about this very topic. I'm going to play it. It'll take us right up virtually to break. I'm going to bring you back right after the break to respond to it. Let's go to the White House briefing room earlier this morning.
Friday, the Section 122, the 10% global tariff, goes away. Is the president going to ask Congress for an extension, or what's next?
Well, I know the USTR, our great Jameson Greer, trade representative, will be having an announcement on that very soon, later today. I don't want to get ahead of him, so I would just tell you to stay tuned for more details. Okay, and then one more on the president's going to have some big utility companies at this event later on today. We're now a year and a half, so to speak, into his
pro-energy policies. Is he going to pressure those executives to lower energy prices, not just maintain the prices?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the Ratepayer Protection Pledge, that is a novel idea drawn up by this president, his team, to ensure that data centers in communities, where those communities want data centers, that these big CEOs and energy companies are picking up the tab for the energy costs in these communities, so the American taxpayer not being fronted with those bills. And the pledge today is being expanded to acknowledge all elements involved in building and operating data center, the governors who appoint the state regulators, who set the power prices, the utilities and the co-ops that sell the power, and in addition to the tech companies that have already signed the pledge. So you'll continue to hear more about that from the president in a few hours at 2:30 when he goes over to the EPA.
Amy, talk to me about the data centers and the electric bills, ma'am.
Steve, in Georgia, our utility prices have increased 6 times over a 2-year period. It was Republican-controlled Public Service Commission, and 2 of those Republicans lost their seats last November. The American people are tired of this. We are seeing the utility increases across the board, across the country. And I will say this. I love the president, but wasn't it during his first term where he made this big deal with Apple and Foxconn, and they were going to build this big facility in Wisconsin and manufacture the iPhones there, and then the president leaves office and it never comes to fruition? This ratepayer protection pledge, I'm afraid the same thing is going to happen, because at the end of the day, how can you enforce it? Again, the president's not a lawmaker. We need to codify these things. But Steve, this is another piece of this on the utility front, whether it's on the electric grid or whether it's on the water. These data center companies are going in and they're lying to the American people. They're lying about the amount of energy that's going to be used. They're lying about the water that's going to be used. If I hear one more time that a data center does not use as much water as a golf course, I'm going to lose my mind. Number one, it depends on the size.
Hang on. Yeah, you're talking to a golfer here. Let's put a pin in it. We're going to take a short commercial break. Amy Kremer, on fire today, is going to be with us after the break.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Axios is reporting that the president is talking with his national security team, and they're coming to conclusions about a massive escalation on the kinetic war in Persia, a massive bombing, additional bombing campaign. Now more than ever, however that turns out, now more than ever, turbulence is in the world's capital markets. You need to find out, particularly with inflation here, you need to find out how you can hedge against that. Gold's been a hedge for 5,000 years of mankind's history. Take your phone out, Bannon 989898. You get a very simple guide for investing in gold and precious metals in the age of Trump. Take advantage of it. Also take advantage of talking to Philip Patrick and the team. They can guide you through everything over at Birch Gold. So take a time to think that through with them. Make sure you learn. They've done End of the Dollar Empire, which is 8 free installments now, going to 9. I'm signing off in the graphics even as we speak, to educate you about why gold is a hedge against fiat currency. Also, the rising cost of healthcare, and it is exploding. People now have to make a decision between food on the table, paying the mortgage, and or living a life, or paying their health insurance. An alternative, America's Health Share. Go to freedomforhealth.org. That's freedomforhealth.org/Bannon. They've got all the information, and you've got access to senior management. So immerse yourself in this. Start to understand it. Talk to the company. Make sure you fully understand it. Could be a tremendous alternative if you think it fits your lifestyle. That's freedomforhealth.org/Bannon. Just check it out. All there. And if you make the switch, you get the 1 month free. That's not the reason to do it. You have to understand this, but they're there and they will inundate you with information. Amy Kremer, continue on talking about, because I am going to shift to the legislative fight you're having on Capitol Hill, but I got to finish this data centers. First off, was it successful? You put on enough Tea Party rallies around the country. Was the 18th, Saturday the 18th, was that a success in your mind?
Absolutely, it was a success. Not only did we get a lot of national press, but these local groups got a lot of national press, or a lot of press locally, and it grew people. The people found out about it, and they came to their events. It was a huge success. And this is what I'll say, Steve. I'm not ready to announce what's yet, but that was just the first step, and we're just getting started. So we are going to continue this, because I believe, and my team believes, and things have been written about it, that it's not only the data center fights in their communities, that's where it's local, but it's also the people's concern about the technology, AI technology, and how it's impacting our lives and how it's being used. And so it's multiple things, and we're just getting started.
Talk to me about this fight on Capitol Hill, what's really going on behind the scenes, because you've got Blackburn has got this bill out there, and it's got some really great things about children. But if we don't really start talking about the regulatory apparatus and control, that's all going to be for naught. And I know Ted Cruz and others up there that are working for the oligarchs are trying to drive this legislation. So we're back to the states can't do anything about it, the citizens can't do anything about it, and we're at the tender mercies of I don't know, Google, OpenAI, Elon Musk, Anthropic, the whole crowd of these really, and all of them are progressive, hardcore progressives. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Go ahead, ma'am.
And they've never been our friends. Just remember that a lot of these are the CEOs of these social media companies that have banned and censored conservatives, for the past 6 to 10 years. There is a fight on Capitol Hill. I personally do not think that there is an appetite to get anything through between now and the end of this Congress. They go on recess. The House leaves today. They won't be back till September. I can't remember when the Senate goes out. I know they're here tomorrow, I believe. But Steve, this is the thing. Senator Blackburn has been a champion. Josh Hawley's been a champion. Senator Jim Banks has been a champion. We have no champions in the House. We need some champions in the House that will lead on this. Senator Blackburn is trying to get her legislation through to protect children. She has been really focused on this, and she's been a rock star. But from what I'm hearing, if it goes into Senate Commerce, which Ted Cruz is the chair of Senate Commerce, I've been told that it's going to include preemption. And that's a no-go for everybody. Listen, we believe that we do need an overarching policy. We do believe that we need a federal policy, a package, to protect the American people, to protect our children, our land, our national security, all those things. But at the end of the day, Congress has not acted. And so then it's incumbent upon the states to act. And we saw earlier this year where the White House staffers in the White House, staffers, unelected staffers in the White House, putting their boots on the necks of these states and their most direct representation there in their states, at their state houses. And we're not going to let that happen again. We are going to be behind these state legislatures. That is one of the things that we are working on at Humans First come January. We're going to help them get legislation pushed through at the state level. And we cannot afford preemption right now, because when the federal government is not acting, it's incumbent upon the states to protect the citizens of their states and their states. And so we're behind them 100%.
Just get on this term. I want to make sure everybody understands this piece of nomenclature. What does preemption mean? Because we talked about a lot in months ago when we were fighting. They were slipping in these 2 and 3 page, essentially executive orders that would be codified into statute that would have basically given the oligarchs everything they wanted. We stopped that. What is preemption, and why is it such a big deal? And why do the oligarchs hate it?
Preemption would mean that the states cannot enact their own laws regarding big tech and AI. And the reason the oligarchs hate it, these unelected oligarchs hate it, is because it gives them free reign to do whatever they want. There's no accountability. And so they've gotten that so far from the administration pretty much, and from Congress, because they have not governed on it. And so now you have the states wanting to act on it, and they don't want to be held accountable at the state level, whether it's reporting incidents or whether it's paying, in lawsuits where they're being sued by, families of victims that, children that have died and whatnot. They don't want to deal with any of this. And their answer is, we don't want to have to deal with 50 state laws. we would rather deal with, one law. But while we're focused on the federal level, let's go engage in these races and spend, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in these races so we can be sure to elect people that are sympathetic to our cause. So they've blanketed this town with money. They blanketed the races with money because they want no laws. They want no regulations. And now they're going after the states on it. And we're just not going to let it happen, Steve. We're not going to allow it to happen.
You do agree, though, that if we had 50 different states and 50 things, it would make it very difficult to get anything accomplished.
Absolutely.
The way to get around that is to have, and look, we're the deconstruction of the administrative state people. We don't want overregulation. But this is what I keep saying. It's like the Atomic Energy Commission at the beginning of the atomic and the hydrogen bomb. Just watch the movie Oppenheimer. If you don't have time to read and study it, you can see you needed some sort of at least a minimum framework there for national security. Here's the same type of thing. We're not asking for overkill. We're asking for a modicum of regulation. The reason this thing has gotten to be a firefight, they just come in totally dismissive, and they're backhanded and sneaky how they did it. In 2025, what they did to try to slip this in, that codified everything, was absolutely one of the worst things I've seen in Washington, D.C., and I've seen a lot of bad stuff, and I know you have too. And they were brazen about it. If it was not for a couple of heroes, and one was the House Armed Services Committee chair who said, look, I got enough problems with the NDAA. I'm not having these guys come in here and try to use this as a thing to tech pro. He says, it's out. And he's a cardinal. When he says it's out, it's out. Go ahead.
But they tried it twice. They tried it with the 10-year moratorium and then the preemption, right? I mean, they are relentless. They will not give up. And we can't compete with their money. But this is why the grassroots are so important, because they cannot buy the American people. And that is who is with us, the American people. And my hope and faith is not in the American government or even in the state governments. My hope and faith is in the American people. And I have seen it with my own eyes that when the American people want something, when they stand up and put their mind to something, whether they want something or they want to stop something, they can do it. And that's why I am focused on organizing and bringing a grassroots movement together to demand accountability here, because that's the only way it's going to get done. We will never compete with their money.
Amy, give people this inside baseball. I want to go back to the schedule. You're saying now, this is the first good news I've heard, that, of course, every day we don't regulate gives them another freedom. You don't think there's going to be any major legislation passed on this up until Election Day? And then, because I want to talk about the lame duck separately, up until Election Day, you think it's overcome by events?
I think there's just no appetite for it. You don't even see these guys. I know of one member of Congress that has said he will not talk about AI on the campaign trail, and he's trying to get through the election cycle and not have to talk about it. And that's the sentiment of a lot of these people. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to govern on it. And look, it is a complicated issue. And conservatives, I mean, it's antithetical to who I am, Steve. I've never advocated for more regulations or more government in my life. It's antithetical to who I am as a conservative. And so conservatives don't really have an answer. But there are ways that we can do this, and we can do it the right way. And conservatives have advocated for regulations on other things in the past. And so we need to get it right. But you have to stand up and you have to talk about it. And we need some champions in the House. We need some champions in the House to lead on this. But right now, there's no appetite for it. There's not an appetite for it. And I don't believe that there is time for it.
Talk to me real quickly about Senator Blackburn's bill about focus on the children. What are the pros of that?
Well, so Senator Blackburn has worked tirelessly. She's been an advocate for us in the digital realm for a long time. And so she's working on protecting these children and giving the parents' rights, to push back and to have a say in what their children have access to online and whatnot. She met with the president earlier this week, and I believe Senator Ted Cruz was in that meeting. But the word coming out of there is that Senator Cruz says he doesn't think that it can pass the Senate. So I don't know where we go from here. I know I hate to lose her because she has been an advocate in the Senate, and I know she's running for governor. And I believe that she will continue her fight on a state level. But Senator Cruz himself has said that this is the thing. In order to get policy passed, legislation passed, you have to make everybody happy, right? And I know that people are not happy. And a couple of weeks ago, her legislation had some preemption in it, and that's just a no-go for too many of us. I mean, and so I don't know where this goes. But she has been a tireless advocate, and I am thankful for her.
We're going to lose her. We're going to lose her. She's going back to be the governor of Tennessee, correct? Yeah, we're going to lose her. She's one of the great advocates. Yeah. Okay, we got to bounce, but I need
but
you.
Wait,
where
can I give it?
Yep, go ahead.
I want to give hope. Ken Paxton is going to be the next senator from Texas, I believe, and he has taken on big tech, and so hopefully he steps right in there and picks up where she left off, and I think we'll be good to go. And maybe he'll bring some courage and backbone from some others too.
Well, Paxton definitely. I want to immerse people in information. I want to go to your site, Humans First. Where do they go, Amy?
Humansfirst.com. You can find out everything about us there. You can also follow me on Twitter at Amy Kremer. It's Kremer. And I'm on Twitter and on Facebook, all the socials. And we'd love to have your support. We're going to be out here fighting. We're not giving up, Steve.
Is this the biggest issue that you've ever dealt with in your career?
Absolutely. I mean, this affects our sovereignty. It affects our national security. There are so many things. It touches our lives in so many ways. People don't even realize it. And we did not vote for this.
Amy Kremer, thank you for the fight. Everybody go to Humans First right now and follow Amy on social media. Absolutely incredible. Birch Gold. Still point in a turning world is your financial situation, particularly if you get closer to retirement. And remember, inflation, particularly on a fixed income, just eats away at all of that. Birchgold.com tell you about gold IRAs, in particular the way you can roll your 401k or IRA over is a tax-deferred method. Bannon at 989898. Do it today.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, Wade Miller joins us from CRA. Wade, I thank you for, I know you've been up on Capitol Hill all day. This reconciliation, the complexity, guys are leaving, what in hell is going on? Just explain us what, I guess, the White House is trying to accomplish or the Senate's trying to accomplish. Then we can figure out what the War Room Posse can help accomplish, sir.
Sure, and it is complicated, and I think people are still trying to wrap their minds around what the right path forward is. But basically, the swamp is going to get their ag money in some way, shape, or form before the end of the year. They're going to get their war supplementals. So I think that there's a real strategic calculation here of how do we understand that and try to extract a win here. And of course, the big prize here is the major components, not all, but the major components of the Save America Act. We're talking about voter ID and proof of citizenship for voter registration. Those would, of course, be two huge things. And I think, I've talked to several House Freedom Caucus members. They're looking at it and, they want, of course, more cuts. They're trying to calibrate for political reality. And safe and secure elections matter, and that has a value. And I think that they're trying to struggle with, are we going to vote for some of the spending in these bills in exchange for this? And, on the back end, there's talk about Reconciliation 4.0. And I certainly want to get to a Reconciliation 4.0. But whether we do or not, I think in and of itself, I think that this is one of those things we have to look at the moment we're in, the makeup of Congress. And I think we've got to take these major provisions so that at the very least, factoring in at some point this year, they're going to have a vote on a major spending bill and they could just add these things in as riders. So we might as well get major provisions of the Save America Act thrown in. And I think that that's the political calculus here. And I think that that's the strategy. I agree with that, although, I continue to listen to the arguments being made, the concerns. One concern is, are we actually going to get to Reconciliation 4.0? We don't know. I certainly hope so, and I think that there's a chance we can. But then, I'm seeing from John Thune all of these arguments. One argument is that, well, if we do this, there's going to be a vote-a-rama. Well, there's a vote-a-rama on literally everything that the establishment and the swamp wants to do. And they only raise this objection when there's something that we want to accomplish, like getting major provisions of the Save America Act across the finish line, which is a big part of course, the president's agenda. And they're talking about, well, we're not even going to take it up now until we get the government funding bill done. And, what does that mean? And how far are they going to push it? And, the deadline of course, they want to get it done by September 30th and all these things. But one option is, why don't you just stay here? Like, you could have this deal done by Monday. Just stay in town and get the reconciliation bill done. Now, I haven't actually done the math on all the hours, and it's roughly sometime next week they could have this done by. And then we could have the fight on the government funding bill. But of course, Senate leadership is throwing up all of these objections, procedural and otherwise, that just are absolute nonsense. And it's just another example of Senate leadership putting the Senate first and not America first. And this has got to break. And I think that over the coming days, we're going to have continuing back and forth over how to best proceed forward. But I do think, as much as I disagree with a lot of provisions in both of the other aspects of this reconciliation bill, I do think that you got to take the win here. You got to get they're just so crucial to the future of the country that I think it's worth whatever policy differences you have.
It's crucial for this election. It's crucial for turnout. They keep saying their argument is, we want to protect our weakest members. We don't want vote-a-ramas. We don't want this. We want to protect our weakest members. They have such an enthusiasm gap. They're going to get blown out because people are just not going to turn out. They're not going to canvass and go door to door. And money's not going to save you. They think that this $300 million they've got and all the money they've raised for all the big donors is going to save them. It's not going to happen. That will not save them. Go ahead.
They never flip the map. They never say a vote-a-rama is actually an opportunity for us to strategically put the left on their heels and make them vote a whole bunch of things that they don't want to vote against. It's always about protecting Susan Collins or moderate Republicans. It's never about putting the left on their heels. If we spent the next 5 days coming up with 100 amendments that we want Democrats to vote on to make them look terrible, this would be a win, easy win. But the leadership just doesn't want to do it. So they don't even want to have that conversation in the first place. But literally every one of their excuses not to do this is total nonsense. It's technically wrong. It's procedurally incorrect. There's answers to all of these things. They just don't want to admit that.
Okay, we're going to get you back. We're going to get you back on and break all this down. Wade, where do people go to find out more about this? I want them to immerse themselves in this information because this is the Senate basically treating President Trump as a lame duck, and they're the ones going to pay for it, sir.
Sure. We have a great primer on a lot of the key reforms we need in the Senate, getting rid of the parliamentarian, doing recess appointments, getting rid of blue slips, the talking filibuster, getting rid of the filibuster at americarenewing.com. That's americarenewing.com. You can find our primer there on this. And then we put out a lot of day-to-day analysis on the current fight. And then, of course, my X handle at Wade Miller. That's at Wade Miller on X, and I do a lot of the day-to-day pushback on a lot of the arguments that you'll be seeing from leadership and others.
Your Twitter feed's amazing. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you, Wade, and the fight.
Thanks for having me on.
Depressing. Got to face reality. Very depressing. What's not depressing is Trevor Comstock. Trevor, I want to finish on an upbeat. Talk to me about, got me so excited, sacred human health, brother.
Yeah, good to see you, Steve. So just a heads up, we are running a sale for our Tallow Moisturizer and our Sacred Healing Salve, those two products specifically. So if you did want to take advantage of it, you can use code SKIN at checkout for 20% off any one-time order. And of course, with the time I had, I'll just touch on the Tallow Moisturizer because it continues to be one of our top-selling products. And people always have a lot of questions around it. But, in short, if you do want to compare it to other moisturizers on the market, the issues typically with those is that they're usually filled with things like fragrances, alcohols, and other cheap fillers that can unfortunately damage the skin barrier over time. So it's basically why we created the product in the first place. But, our formula is handmade. We only use ingredients that we trust and that are high quality. And it doesn't contain anything synthetic within it either. No chemicals or anything like that. It's just the 100% American grass-fed and finished beef tallow and the raw Manuka honey from New Zealand. So, the tallow overall, for anyone that doesn't know, it's just amazing because it is almost identical to the natural oils that your skin produces. So it absorbs much more deeply as opposed to just sitting on top of your skin, which unfortunately is the case with a lot of other products on the market. And then to take it a step further, it's loaded with natural vitamins. So you'll get things like vitamin A, D, E, as well as K, which are crucial for skin health. So it's a pretty powerful product. I encourage people to check that out.
Where do they go? I want them to read the reviews on this product and all your products. So it's pretty amazing. Where do people go?
Yeah, there's a ton of reviews that you can sift through, but you can go to sacredhumanhealth.com. And as I had mentioned, you can use code SKIN for 20% off on the Tallow Moisturizer and Sacred Healing Salve.
Now you're talking. Brother, great job. Keep grinding.
Thank you.
Sacred Human Health, Trevor Comstock, one of the best founders, CEOs, entrepreneurs in the country. Stick around. The second hour of the afternoon, early evening war room is upon us.